Welcome to Comics Bazaar, the channel of comics commentary and arcana. This video features Daredevil issue 198, cover dated September 1983. Now the cover is by Carl Potts, pencils and inks by him. There's a date on this for March 1983. I really like this cover. It is unconventional, it is quite arty in fact, and a very interesting design with the twisting tree trunk here on the left hand side of the page, acting as a kind of a frame for these two samurai crossing this bridge and facing off against Daredevil there, who's leaping in the air and tackling them with his billy club. I think it's really well done. I think the inking itself also, likely done with a brush, is quite expressive. I really like the line work there on the folds and drapery of this particular samurai warrior's costume. Yeah, it's an interesting cover. I like it very much. Let's open this one up to the splash page. So the title of the story is Touch of a Stranger, and the location is Japan, specifically Tokyo. Matt Murdock has gone to Tokyo following Bullseye, who has been taken to Japan by a man called Lord Darkwind, and he's there in Japan in order to have his skeleton replaced with adamantium, and that definitely promises big trouble. So Matt's there in order to prevent that from happening, and here he is thinking to himself as he climbs up the exterior of the hotel in which he's staying. This is a first, breaking into my own hotel room. Not my idea of a good time, but it beats having to explain my costume to the management. So the creative team is here: Denny O'Neill's story, William Johnson, new regular artist, pencils, and in the previous issue his work was inked by Mike Mignola, but in this one it's Danny Bulandi doing the inking. Joe Rosen is the colorist, and Joe Rosen is the letterer, and Glynis Wine is the colorist. So that's a pretty nicely composed splash page. Let's continue, and then we have a 6-panel layout here, and Daredevil enters his hotel room and he continues thinking, at least I don't have to worry about being seen. The room to the left is empty and the couple on the right are snoring loud enough to rattle my molars. Radar sense indicates no activity in the corridor outside either. So he pulls on his civilian costume, or not costume, but clothes rather, and then picks up the phone. He's going to put in a phone call to New York, and then outside he meets Yuriko. So this is the mysterious woman who was imprisoned on the ship that brought Bullseye to Japan. And at the end of the previous issue we learned that one side of her face, the left side of her face, is scarred, and we're going to find out who did that later on in this particular issue. So she sees that he's no longer wearing the strange red clothing, and he explains, yes, well, it's easier to move around unnoticed this way. And she says, I see, come, we must hurry, our train leaves in an hour. So they're going someplace, but they're being watched. So there's a man pretending to be, or he is on the phone rather, and he is giving information on Yuriko in particular. I follow them from the dock to the hotel, he says. A second man, an American, has joined the woman. She mentioned the railroad. So whoever's on the other line says, on the end of the line rather, says, you've done well, you'll be rewarded. That's all translated from Japanese. So there's a trio of men here, and they are strategizing in terms of how to do the job. Try to make his death appear a common street crime, says the leader. So Matt is walking with Yuriko. She sees now that, or rather, she doesn't know he's blind, and she's asking him about the dark glasses and the white cane. So he says, about the glasses, I prefer it that way. And then he says about the white cane, the blind man's cane, maybe we can trick our enemies into thinking we're more helpless than we are. So they enter into the what would you call it? Like the main area of the train station where you can buy your tickets. And he says to her, look, you go buy the tickets or whatever we need. I've got to make a call. So another phone call to New York. And he gets in touch with the person he's looking to speak to, and it's Ben Urich at the Daily Bugle. But here in the foreground, there's a man with a knife. And remember that instruction, make it appear like a common street crime. So let's continue with the story. In New York, Ben Urich is there. Okay, so that's what the first phone call was about. He was asking Ben to do some research on Lord Darkwind. So this is the key information. We know some of this, that he was a kamikaze pilot in World War II, and he crashed his plane into an aircraft carrier, 1,000,000 to 1 chance. They say he's worn a mask ever since, no one knows why. But your assumption would be that he was scarred in the crash on the aircraft carrier. And then Urich continues as we get an exterior shot of the Daily Bugle building in Manhattan. He continues giving Matt the information, wrote a book about it after the war, made a bundle, bought an island and set himself up as some kind of lord, married and had 2 sons and, significantly there, a daughter. And Ben says, that's all I have. Interested in some conjectures? Go ahead, Ben, says Matt. Okay then, they say he finances a lot of reactionary political activity. It's believed his sons were killed trying to assassinate the Japanese Prime Minister. So this is interesting. So Lord Darkwind, who was a kamikaze pilot in World War II, so that would be a subject of Imperial Japan, a soldier of Imperial Japan. He failed in his mission. He survived. He considers himself dishonored. And he is now, it seems, if you read between the lines, looking to restore the Imperial Japan and as a military power in the world, whereby maybe he can restore his honor that he feels was lost by his failure as that kamikaze pilot. And Ben continues, he says, our man in Tokyo says Oyama is not above using local thugs, Yakuza, and that he's had a few people killed, especially anyone who gets near his island. The bottom line, Matthew, this bird is dangerous, avoid him. So Matt hears something behind him. He looks, or he turns his head rather, because he's blind, of course, over his right shoulder, just in time to pull out use his cane, which is his billy club, to parry the thrust with the knives there of the Yakuza thug. Meanwhile, Ben continues on the end of the line saying, here's something else our Tokyo stringer heard that Oyama scars his children's faces, maybe like his is scarred. Pretty twisted, huh? And while that's going on, we have excellent fight choreography here of Matt taking on the Yakuza thug and besting him. And then he picks up the receiver. Sorry for the interruption, Ben. But it's interesting that information comes about the scarring of the children's faces while he's distracted with this fight. So he hears it, but he's distracted. He says, sorry for the interruption. And Ben says, it's okay with me. I'm not paying for the call. And then he hears, because remember there was 3 of them, he hears a gun being cocked. It's fired. And it was fired straight at him, but he ducks just in time, but it destroys the phone. So then the thugs makes a run for it, and Matt thinks to himself, he's taking off. I could follow, but time's too short as it is. So they're going to board the train. And he continues to think to himself there, strange city, strange country, not much chance of catching him anyway. And reaching Oyama's island and Bullseye is the most important thing. So they're on the train there, and it's going at 200 miles an hour. And Matt is thinking about how this is a surprise for him, because he always thought of Japan as quaint, almost primitive. But now he sees that they've got, a bullet train, high technology. So it's a country of contradictions, tradition, and modernity. And then he gets a strange experience where we see here he's got this nimbus around his head, and then a superimposition, a color hold, that's a 1980s craft technique, of Daredevil, the head over Bullseye there. And Lord Darkwind asks Bullseye what's wrong, and Bullseye responds loud and clear, I hear you. What's wrong is Daredevil. He's in Japan, heading for this island, heading here fast. So this is pretty weird, and there was a a foreshadowing of this, or there was a preview of this in the previous issue. So what is going on? Lord Darkwind has a theory, and his theory is when men hate greatly, a link is forged between them. Such a link exists between Bullseye and the American Daredevil. And so we see in the train, we have a superimposition of Bullseye's masked face over Matt's. So he says he's going to be fine. He explains that it was the head injury. We got this interesting establishing shot of the train pulling into a station. It's snowing. I like this little piece of acting that's going on here, where this little girl is pointing at these rather strange passengers on the train, and the mother's grabbed her by the arm there to prevent her from going over to them and making a scene. And Daredevil is saying about this man that he is hunting, that they have a history, and that it's a long story and an ugly one, says Matt. He's deprived many people of their lives and deprived me of the woman I love. And she asks, he killed her? Yes, brutally. So of course that's a reference to Elektra and the events of Daredevil 181, which of course you can find a review of in the back catalogue of the channel. So now Matt wants some answers from Yuriko. Your turn. What's your connection with Darkwind, Dan? But they're interrupted by the train attendant who makes an announcement that passengers can step off onto the platform if they wish, because the train will be stopped at that station for 30 minutes. So Yuriko says, let's stretch our legs. So off they go onto the platform, and once again Matt hears a gun being cocked. So he pushes Yuriko out of the way, even as the bullet hits the window of the train, tells her to get in and stay inside, and now he swings up onto the rooftop of the station platform, and he's thinking to himself, I can hear him running along the right of way quicker if I take the high road, and he won't get away again. So he jumps down from the roof of the platform, catches the guy around the neck, but he knocks Matt, or he tries to knock him onto the ground, but Matt swings free, lands on his feet, kicks him in the face, and then punches him also in the face. And he's thinking all the time, or rather he says to him, all right, mister, who sent you? He tries to question him. He doesn't understand English, and I don't speak Japanese. I can't question him. Now, something that catches my attention here, looking at the art from William Johnson, a neophyte artist, is he's putting the work in. So you can see here he's drawing the cars in the car park outside the station. He's got this mother and daughter there watching the fight too. And then this parked car here. So he's got Matt and the Yakuza thug in perfect perspective, as well as the parked car, and you get to see in to the steering column of the parked car, and the steering column is on the right side as well, which is the case in Japan, where they drive on the left hand side of the road. This is really well referenced by William Johnson. So even though the aesthetic of his art might not be as appealing as either Frank Miller's or Klaus Janssen's or David Mazzucchelli's, the man can draw, and he's doing well here. So Matt decides, I can't do anything except hit him, and there's no point in that. Train's leaving, so he drops him onto the ground of the car park, and they're back on board the train. So now Matt is back to his original question. Back to the topic at hand, he says to Yuriko, you were telling me why you're leading me to Bullseye and Darkwind. And so she explains, Darkwind recruits young men to serve in his private army. So there's that reactionary right-wing army. There is one such man. His name is Kira, and she says to Matt, I love him very much. If he continues to follow the madness of Darkwind, he will be harmed. I hope you'll distract Darkwind, so I may reason with Kira that, or what? Asks Matt. I hope you kill him. That is Darkwind. So this is a dark statement given the identity and relationship of Yuriko to Lord Darkwind. But at that moment in New York, this is a strange little piece here. I don't think we need this little bit in this issue. It's foggy. He's wide awake in bed, and he's wondering about what Matt is getting up to in Japan and how he might be surrounded by beautiful Oriental women giving him back rubs. His wife gets up there and he pulls himself under the covers and promises her he'll go back to sleep. So it's a little comic moment, and I suppose that's often what Franklin Nelson brings to a Daredevil comic, a little bit of humor. But I just don't think it's necessary in this particular issue. We don't need this. But anyway, we get this nice shot here of the little wooden boat that they hope to use to cross over to the island, Lord Darkwind's island. And so they buy it from the man because he refuses to sail them there. So Matt is capable with Yuriko of sailing the sailboat to the island, even through the rough sea. And that's really well done there, the waves as well. And then Matt says, or she asks him, is he fearful of what might be waiting for him on the island? He says, I'm feeling something you could call fear, but not of whatever's waiting on the island. Of what could happen if we don't go there, of what Bullseye might do. And Bullseye once again has this intuition. He's coming, he's almost here, I can feel it. So Lord Darkwind is there, he says, I do not doubt it. Bullseye's going for his crutches there to get up on his feet. And we get a shot now of Lord Darkwind, who's got these samurai. He says to Bullseye, I admire your spirit. It is what I hope to find in you, but you're not yet sufficiently recovered to fight. These shall deal with the American, these brave warriors, these samurai. And then here's this guy, Kira, that Yuriko says she loves. He wants to join them, but Darkwind says, not you, Kira, you're not sufficiently trained. Besides, the three of them are more than a match for one lone man. This is a really nice shot here where they leave the structure and go out into the snowy dark, and we see them in silhouette. And Kira says, or rather, it's not Kira, it's Bullseye. We can see it's Bullseye by the bandage on his head. He's here. He's stepping foot on the island. So this is an interesting panel as well, where we see Matt pulling the wooden boat, the wooden sailboat, up onto the beach. Wind's getting mean. I hope this tub stays put, he says. And Yuriko tells him, we better find shelter for the night. And another one of these 6-panel layouts. So 2 tiers of 3 vertical panels. And I really like this kind of layout. And also the combination of the shots here by Johnson and also Glynis Wine's colours, I think it works really well. Let's see here. Yuriko says, I know of a place just beyond the bridge, but before we go further, you must put these on. And Daredevil, or rather Matt, asks, what are they? And she says to him, traditional Japanese clothes. Lord Darkwind insists that his people dress in the old ways. So she turns her back to him and she says, I shall avert my eyes, hardly necessary, he says. So he's taking off his civilian clothes, or his ordinary clothes, his jacket, but he's always got his Daredevil costume on underneath. And then he hears someone's coming. They're almost at the bridge. So he pulls on his mask, and we're going to get a fight scene now between those 3 samurai and Daredevil. That was promised by the cover, and here it comes. And what I find interesting is Denny O'Neil decides to pare back on dialogue and narrative captions. He lets William Johnson's art do the talking. And that's a vote of confidence in this young artist at this time. So we see the samurai on the wooden bridge in silhouette coming forward, and there they are revealed wearing their traditional samurai costumes. And Yuriko says to Daredevil, they're highly trained expert swordsmen, we must flee. Moment of silence. He makes a decision. No, he is the man without fear after all. So he challenges them. Gentlemen, he's inviting them to come attack him as he swings his billy club. It's a narrow, icy bridge, fierce and cold the winter wind, warriors meeting. And so we see the fight choreography here. Daredevil kicks one of them over the side of the bridge into the icy water. And then a DeLuca effect here. Of course, William Johnson must have studied Frank Miller's run on the title, and this is a Frank Miller speciality. So he's having his a go of it here in this particular panel. And Denny O'Neil has decided no words needed, no narrative caption, just let the art do the talking. So he hops over one of the samurai who's running at him with that sword and deals with the one behind, kicking him in the jaw. And Yuriko too tackles the man in the water and knocks him out before he can get up and join his compatriots. But here's this lead samurai, and he is round the back of Daredevil, ready to chop his head off. But Daredevil, of course, has his radar sense, and he turns around. This is really nicely done with the billy club up behind the back of his left arm, right above his elbow, and parries, blocks that samurai sword blow, which makes me wonder, what material is the billy club made of? It can't be wood, or the samurai sword would cut right through it. So it's got to be a tougher metal than really refined, forged steel. So then he uses the billy clubs to batter the samurai guy, drops his sword, and Yuriko sees it in the water, pulls it out, and then Daredevil, we've got this effect here of his radar sense. There's something on the end of a chain that is coming directly for the back of his head, but he turns around just in time and grabs it with the billy club. So again, you can see no dialogue here, no narrative captions. This is evoking the Frank Miller era, when Frank Miller often did this himself, and Denny O'Neil keeping that approach to comic storytelling alive here. And again, as I said just a few minutes ago, it's a vote of confidence in William Johnson's art and storytelling ability. So here we go. The fight is going to wrap up now. Daredevil catches the guy with the chain just under the jaw, knocks him out, and Bullseye, somehow or other, by intuition, by some kind of strange psychic rapport born of the hatred between Daredevil and Bullseye, realizes that he's won. And Daredevil says to Yuriko, going to try to kill me. Why should I do that? You led me into a trap, didn't you? Says Daredevil. Something my friend said on the telephone back at the railroad station. I was too busy to pay attention at the time, but a while ago I remembered it. He said Darkwind scarred his children. You're his daughter. So this is the moment of realization, and she admits it. Yes, this is an interesting top-down angle here as well. We can see the shadow cast by the pair on the snow. Yes, but I did not lie to you. I do love Kira. I fear what may happen to him, and I hate my father. I hate him for what he did to my brothers and for what he's doing to Kira. I cannot expect you to believe me. But Daredevil puts his hand on her shoulder and says, but I do. I have ways of telling when someone is lying. You're not, because of course he can tell by their heartbeat, which he can hear. Then you must take the blade and kill these men. They're puppets of my father, she says to him. He takes the blade. Of course, he throws it in the river again. No, he says, because Matthew Murdock does not kill. That's a really cool bullpen bulletin there by John Byrne. An illustration of him at his drawing board with all the characters that he's renowned for drawing at Marvel standing around and watching him. And then final page. So page 22 of a 22-page story. All horizontal panels. Again, a Frank Miller layout, but one that he usually used for fights only. So used differently here. You're merciful, she says to him. Not necessarily, not always. I'm just not a killer. We've got an interesting screen tone there in the background too. And now she hands him once again the package with the traditional clothes in it, and he puts them on and they cross the bridge. I know a place where we can spend the night, she says, a stable. We dare not build a fire the servants of my father might see, but at least it will shelter us from the storm. So then, and this is interesting because Yuriko you know, she's got an interesting backstory in terms of being scarred by her father. The fact that she blames her father for the death of her brothers, all of that. And we know that Daredevil, Matthew Murdock, is attracted to bad girls. And so it seems to be the case once again, where he reaches out towards her, touches her face, Eureka, he says, and she says, I understand. It is cold and dark and fearful in this place, and the touch of a stranger is all we have, and it may be enough. So there's some keeping warm that night in the stable. And does it extend beyond sharing body heat? Anything else shared that night? Well, you know, it's up to the reader's imaginations, at least until the next issue might confirm what happens between the pair. But there you go. One page of letters concerning issue 195. And what's up next? Bullseye's back. And Daredevil's worried. Don't miss Daughter of a Dark Wind. So there we go. I do hope that you enjoyed this review and commentary on Daredevil issue 198. I think after a little bit of a shaky start from William Johnson on the previous issue, he must have been overwhelmed by the challenge of drawing an issue of a top-selling Marvel title at the time and following on from Frank Miller and Klaus Janson. I feel he's settled down a bit better here in this particular issue, but there's one thing I should point out, that on the credits page here, there's special thanks to Larry Hama, and what I'm wondering is, did Larry Hama provide layouts for William Johnson? But usually, if that were the case, that would be made plain in the credits. Another explanation is Larry Hama, who is Japanese American or American Japanese, whichever way you want to put it. He was born in New York, but his parents were Japanese. Larry Hama, of course, very knowledgeable on Japanese history and, of course, the culture of Japanese samurai. And maybe that's what the special thanks is for, that he is consulting on this issue in terms of getting the details of the costumes and the weaponry correct. That may be it, rather than providing layouts. But I do think that this is a good issue. It is obviously filler in respect of the coming confrontation between Daredevil and Bullseye, but I think it works well. I think there's nice character work in this, and yeah, I like those pages where Denny O'Neil says, you know what, these drawings, they tell the story, and I'm not going to put any dialogue in, and I'm not going to put any narrative captions down. I think that's a vote of confidence in William Johnson. Let me know your thoughts on this one in the comment section. If you enjoyed my review and commentary, please like and share the video. It really does help the channel. And if you haven't done so already, subscribe to the channel and stay tuned for more content like this.